Most people would agree the Biltmore Estate may look peaceful and grand, but there's a strange feeling that hits you the longer you stare at it, like something hidden is watching you from behind its windows. Today, we are telling a shocking story behind America's largest mansion. This story begins far before the mansion even existed. So, long before the estate became a symbol of wealth and beauty, the land underneath it belonged to ordinary people, families who lived quiet, simple lives in the mountains. However, Vanderbilt bought their land piece by piece until entire communities disappeared, clearing the way for his dream estate. Some families left willingly, some didn't, making the land practically cursed and possibly dangerous. But when construction began in 1889, thousands of laborers poured onto the estate. Safe to say, it was one of the biggest building projects in American history at the time, a non-stop race against deadlines, weather, and dangerous conditions. Unfortunately, poorly equipped workers were climbing unstable scaffolding, hauling massive blocks of stone, and doing it all without modern safety equipment. And as you can guess, not everyone survived. Eventually, men fell from high beams, slipped on wet stone, got crushed under materials, or simply collapsed from exhaustion and never got up again. Back then, workplace deaths weren't carefully recorded or publicly acknowledged, especially not on wealthy estates, so the exact number remains a mystery. But stories from local families and early workers all say the same thing. People died on that land, and the house silently absorbed every one of those tragedies. The Biltmore mansion is unbelievably large, with more than 250 rooms spread across endless hallways and quiet hidden passages that servants once used to move unseen. In fact, there are 65 fireplaces, 35 bedrooms, and 43 bathrooms, numbers you can still see listed in the estate's own records. Even the basement feels like its own world, with the drained indoor swimming pool, the old bowling alley, and rows of servant quarters that look almost untouched. To be clear, nothing about the place feels modern or warm. Everything reminds you that this house has been here for more than a century, holding on to every moment it has ever witnessed. Apparently, George Washington Vanderbilt II was only in his 20s when he decided to build the Biltmore, and he wasn't looking for a normal home. What he wanted was a private world built exactly the way he imagined it. To him, the Biltmore was meant to be a sanctuary, a place where he could rest, collect rare objects, host a few chosen guests, and live in a world he controlled down to the last detail. But what makes this story stand out?
The death of a New York City firefighter at Biltmore Estate was the result of high winds that knocked a tree limb onto a car. That North Carolina-based tourist attraction says it happened at the entrance of the estate.
Even after the construction ended, the deaths didn't stop. In fact, servants, caretakers, and guests passed away over the decades. Some from illness, some from strange accidents, and others under circumstances that no one talks about anymore. This mansion was indeed full of hidden corners and forgotten spaces, where not every death was documented the way it should have been, and some stories faded away with time. Yet they say the house always remembers. So, most of the haunting reports come from places that were deeply personal to the Vanderbilts, especially the library. George Vanderbilt spent countless nights in that room, surrounded by thousands of books. After he died, his wife Edith would sit in that very room, grieving quietly, and she claimed she sometimes heard him speaking to her, not in a dream, nor her imagination, but as a clear voice in the room. However, modern visitors say the same thing, a whisper calling a name that doesn't belong to anyone present, as if George is still wandering through his favorite. Then there's the indoor pool, the place that gives chills even to the bravest visitors. Actually, it hasn't held water in over 100 years, yet people swear they hear splashing laughing, and the unmistakable echo of footsteps circling the pool's edge. How did this giant structure fall in the first place? Actually, the Biltmore mansion didn't fall apart in a dramatic way. In fact, it slipped into quiet decline, little by little, after the man who built it was gone. When George Vanderbilt died in 1914, the house instantly became too big for anyone to handle. He was the only one who truly understood the purpose of the estate, and without him, everything started to feel heavier. His wife, Edith, did her best, but the cost of keeping the mansion running was far more than any normal family could manage. Eventually, rooms began to close, staff members left, and parts of the house grew silent. Even the hallways that once stayed busy became empty, and whole areas of the mansion were barely used at all. Then came the Great Depression, and things got even harder. Of course, the family had no choice but to sell off huge pieces of land just to keep the estate alive. Later, they opened the mansion to the public because it was the only way to save it, and what was once a private world built for one man's dreams became a place for tourists. The Biltmore didn't fall into ruins, but it fell in spirit, losing the life it once had. Today, the Biltmore Mansion is one of the most visited homes in America, carefully maintained and open for tours year-round. People come to see its 250 rooms, wide staircases, and historic furniture. Now the estate is bright, organized, and restored, but walking through it still reminds you how old it is. Every room feels frozen in time, giving visitors a clear glimpse into what life looked like when the Vanderbilts were still there. The current and former staff of the Biltmore talk quietly about strange things that happen when the mansion is almost empty. Some have heard footsteps on the grand staircase, even though no one else was there. Even today, a few workers and tour guides have described sounds that feel like a distant party, like the clinking of glasses, quiet laughter, or faint music coming from rooms that haven't been used in decades. Some say they've smelled cigar smoke in places where smoking is not allowed, or felt something pass by them in the hallway. The Biltmore looks calm today, but the stories surrounding it make you wonder what still lingers behind those quiet halls and locked doors. Maybe it's just the age of the mansion, or maybe it's something else entirely. Either way, the Biltmore has a way of staying with you long after you leave. So now that you've heard the stories, what do you think? Are these just old house noises? Or is the Biltmore holding on to more than history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more true eerie stories like this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves a good mystery.